There we go. All right. So it's one of the last beautiful weekends of the summer, and and sorry, I'm going to turn off my email. It's one of the last beautiful weekends of the summer, and I really am very grateful to all of you guys for showing up on a Sunday when it's 29 degrees Celsius in a place that I always think, at least in Ottawa, and he's out in BC, and other people are different places, but I always think of Ottawa as the place that's always winter, but that's not true. We either freeze or we boil, and Annie, today we're boiling. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and again, I want to say thanks again for joining me on a Sunday. I wouldn't drag all of you guys out or away from your families, you know, your kids and grandkids. My youngest grandson, who is almost 7 months old, is visiting me from Calgary. So, you know, I understand how important family time is. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining in. But this is a time-sensitive matter. So, and I need a little bit of help. So you guys are going to get a bit of a pitch from me. If you have any questions at all, you know, stop me during the presentation and just put them in the chat box. If you want. I'm just trying to find the chat box here. Oh, there it is. Just put it in the chat box. I'll see it. It'll pop up. Or unmute yourself and ask. I mean, I want this to be a conversation, but at the same time, I don't want to keep you guys too long because it is, like I said, a Sunday, and I appreciate everything. I'm very close to everyone on this call, and I have an amazing amount of respect for the people I coach and who participate in the various adventures that I have been on. Brucey's Big Adventure, it's a lifetime of adventure, and this is another one that I want to talk to you about. So this model that I'm going to show you today, I think is relevant to, I think, everybody on this call. Annie, you know, this is one that you and I have talked about. I've talked with Christian about it. I've talked with Brad about it. And pretty much everybody on the call kind of has a feeling for it, but it is probably one of the best models. I call it the Samuel business model. I'll tell you why I call it that in a moment. So it's about Main Street makeovers in cities and towns across North America. And just a little bit of background. I mean this, I put myself to sleep every night thinking about business models. That's how crazy I am. You know, some people count sheep, some people count their money. I invent business models every night before I go to sleep. So that's a picture of me lying down, and instead of sheep, it's business models floating by. You know, there was a movie where the young kid saw dead people. Well, I don't see dead people, I see business models. And I've been working in business modeling before it was very fashionable. So I started working at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University in 1994, and I was pioneering business models before anybody knew it was anything different than say, a business plan. A typical business plan is 30 pages, 50 pages. Mostly people don't read them. A business model is simply one page. It's basically the engine of your business. Typically on the left-hand side, it has suppliers. On the right-hand side, it has customers. You're in the middle with some kind of business, hopefully adding value. You've got a brain involved. You've got a marketing dimension. It's a one-page pictogram of your business. And that is something today in 2020 that people really understand and respect. So this is about a new real estate business model. So I was very intensive focus on business models for businesses, for active businesses. And then in 2007, 2008, I pivoted my career. You know, I was getting involved in real estate as a realtor, and then I was getting involved in coaching. And I realized that real estate had been left behind in the business model revolution that I was part of in the 90s. And so I switched and I pivoted to business models. And I probably have over 100, I think, very good real estate business models that I have worked on with a lot of my clients, coaching clients and real estate clients. And bringing this discipline of real estate business models to the field of real estate, I think really does count for something. I put this in here just for fun. Some of you know that I like to write novels as well as books, and I call them learning outcome novels. They're really just an excuse for me to write about really interesting people, but guess what? In each of these learning outcome novels that I've written a few, there is a business model. So there's a learning outcome to a novel. I like to write about, love, which I think is very important. I like to write about adventure. I like to write about challenges. And I've written a bunch of them. And if you haven't read any of my learning outcome novels, if you feel like it, email me and I'll send you one and you put it on your tablet and definitely put you to sleep. And one of the reasons why I did this was for my students when I was actually teaching young people, but also because I really think that Hollywood and scriptwriters and screenwriters know nothing about business. They don't. And I put up on the screen here just for fun a shot of Dallas. Some people are too young to know what Dallas was. It was a show about an oil tycoon by the name of J.R. Ewing. And it always used to amuse me that at 10 o'clock in the morning when J.R. Ewing, running a big company, 10 o'clock in the morning when you go and visit J.R. to talk about some nefarious scheme, he would say, "Would you like scotch or bourbon?" And Christian, back me up here. I don't know any CEO of a major company who drinks at 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Well, okay.
Back in the 70s and 60s, I don't think it was that unusual.
Well, maybe not, but certainly, when I was running the Senators and I was running a much bigger company, we had one rule: don't drink and think. So I just thought, hell, I could write a better script than that. So I wrote a few. So the Samuel model is actually based on something that one of my clients, he couldn't make the call today. His name is FEHAJ. He's a brilliant young man in his mid-30s, based in actually Kitchener and Waterloo. He's got, real estate coming out of his ears. He's a brilliant young man. And he and I have been working on this model because he was looking at buying this building in a small town in Sarnia, which has about 70,000 people. So it's not real small, but it's not a megapolis. So this building here that Shadi and I were looking at, this was for Shadi to buy, has a lot of the elements. And Andy, you're going to recognize some of the elements because that was one of the buildings that you were looking at in Penticton, or similar kind of building. So he can buy this building, or the idea was to buy this building very inexpensively in a small town on a main street that needs a bit of a makeover. And the idea that we had the highest and best use for was to put in a small cafe here, perhaps, a professional office, a law office, a storefront legal office, accounting office, maybe a physiotherapy office, who knows, a walk-in medical clinic, but quite small. And then around the perimeter of this, you guys all know I'm very, very keen on makeover space, workshop space or maker spaces, all right? So, because the idea is today to live and work in one place. This is, I think, a real coming thing. It was coming even before COVID-19, but now it's a big thing. So the idea was a couple of small retail or quasi-retail or professional offices at grade, things that are internet resistant, like cafes are internet resistant. You can have a dentist office there. Until the internet can drill our teeth, I think dentists will still have lots of work. And then upstairs, there was room, I think, for 8 to 10, maybe even as many as 12 microsuites, which everybody on the call knows I'm very keen on. And then in addition to that, we're going to add some playful elements, like, maybe a pickleball court or outdoor ping pong and a food truck, something that really stands out. So it's a very active mixed use product. So Samuel comes from Sarnia Mixed Use Models. Samuel, it's kind of a terrible name, but anyway, that's what we named it. And then after we named it Samuel, Shadi and I realized, I looked it up and I found out that Samuel was a prophet, and he was revered by 3 major religions on the planet. I thought that was pretty cool. And then my grandfather's name on my mother's side was Sam, and my wife Dawn has a cat, Sammy. So now I like it better. So this morning, Skylar asked me by email, what are the trends that I'm seeing in real estate right now? And I thought I would share that with you. I shared it with you, Skylar, by email, and I thought I'd share it with everybody. I think most of the people on the call have heard me talk about this before, but I wrote it up this morning for Skylar. Emigration from major city centers to exurbs is really accelerating, and small towns, I think, are going to be much more popular in the next decade than they have been in the last few decades. I read that 40% of the rich folks in Manhattan have left. You know, they don't want to live on the 62nd floor of a condo tower overlooking Central Park and then having to risk going down in the elevators, you know, out into a very busy place and getting sick. This COVID thing, I've had 2 of my clients get sick with it, and you know, luckily Canada seems to have this under control, but if any of us get sick with it, it is no joke. It is really, really hard on people, even young people. So one of the trends was major cities are going to lose folks, and smaller towns, I think, are going to gain them. That's a good thing, I think. And there's more emphasis on something that we have been pushing, I have been pushing now for 7 years, FEHAJ for every home a job, and FEJAF for every job a home, so that you can live and work in one place. And backyard homesteading, you know, grow your own vegetables. I mean, gosh, none of these ideas are really new. We just have forgotten about them. We've gotten a little bit lazy, I think, as a society. So backyard homesteading has really come out in a major way, and virtually every nursery across Canada and the United States is sold out. So people, I have one now, backyard garden with fruits, vegetables, herbs, berries, you name it, corn. We're growing it in our backyard. We have a nice big backyard. The gig economy has been, you know, bubbling along. This is not new again, but after so many people lost their jobs, it's incredible what's going on, and I am seeing incredible amount of demand for workshop and maker spaces from tenants of mine.
Due to the vote.
A big one. Who was that? Hello? Did somebody have a question? Anyway, the gig economy is growing fast, and that's obviously a trend that's accelerating, I think. And something else that I think is very relevant to this group is that if you offered me an office building for free, I would probably turn it down today. I just don't like that category. I built office buildings in my career, but I certainly would not be building any more at this point. If you gave me an office building for free, I would not keep it as an office building. Either I'd flip it and get some money for it, I hope, or I would convert it to something that allowed you to live there in suites, apartments, to work there, obviously, to play there, to learn. And I call these, you know, live, work, play, make, create, learn, shop, exercise, entertain, grow, socialize, animated, diversified, visitable, walkable, green places, spaces, and communities. That's what I think we should do with our office buildings. And I am involved with the new Ottawa official plan, which we're hoping to get out on November 20th of this year. The city of Ottawa is. So if you're in Ottawa, mark down November 20th. That will be a big day. And the idea is that if you want to build another office building in Ottawa, I'm encouraging the city of Ottawa to not let anybody build another office building. None, zero. If you come forward, you want to build an office building of 300,000 square feet with none of these other elements where people can live and as well as work and play and learn and shop, make, create, the answer will be no. So I'm hoping that we will absolutely change the way we're building out our city. Then if you look at point number 5 at the top of this slide, something else that is incredible, all the people I know in industry right across Canada and in the United States too are just booming. Onshoring of industrial production is going up. And so in terms of investing in industrial, I got to admit somebody here, hang on. So in terms of where you're going to put your next dollar, industry is it. Shadi Fahal and I are working on an industrial model, which is very closely related to this. And that is a great direction to invest in my opinion. Okay, number 8 here. You probably already know this. Number 8 is folks are rediscovering nature. And so again, small towns that are close to nature, I think will do very, very well. And I was really impressed with the city of Edmonton. I learned recently that the city of Edmonton has abolished all parking requirements. You can build the biggest office tower, residential tower. Dan and Eric, you'll enjoy hearing about this. You can build the biggest residential tower you could imagine. You don't have, if you don't want to provide any parking, it's up to you. No parking requirements anywhere in the city. That is a very brave thing for the oil capital of Canada to do. They just abolished it. And in fact, this is confidential, but the city of Ottawa is trying to hire away the planner who actually pioneered this in Edmonton. She's an outstanding planner. We're trying to see if we can convince her to come to Ottawa and help us with the same kind of thing. But the other thing that's coming up is people want to use outdoor patios, and Edmonton is going to try and create or copy what Copenhagen has done. Copenhagen winters are very tough, not as cold as Edmonton, but very dark and windy. They're going to try and create patios that are open year-round. We want to experience nature as best we can. So these are some of the trends that are happening. And I put here, you can see on the top right, this is a picture in Edmonton of how they're going to go about winterizing their city and making it possible to have living streets even in the wintertime. And on the left-hand side is a phenomenal cafe in Gatineau, Quebec. It's a little tiny space called Edgar Cafe. I think it seats 19 people. And these are the kinds of uses, having patios, maybe having patios that are open year-round, having things like a hairdresser, an RMT, registered massage therapist, physiotherapist, dentist, professional office, that I think has legs. I don't think Amazon are going to put those guys out of business anytime soon. I'm just going to check and see who's maybe not muted here. Paul, I'm going to mute you, and maybe there's some other people here that I need to mute. Maybe Eric, just to make sure that you guys can hear me. All right. So I'll go back to looking at myself. All right. So these are some of the trends, and I thought that would be interesting. And then I think everybody has heard me talk, until you're probably sick of it, about microsuites. This is the single hottest trend in real estate, and it was even before COVID-19 whacked us. They're anywhere from, UBC is building them as small as 145 square feet. They don't call them microsuites. They're so small, they call them nano suites. The one that you see on the screen here is around 300 square feet. And these are very, very, very popular, not just with young people, but even with elders. A lot of elders don't want to be bogged down with a lot of real estate. And as everybody on the call knows, one of the reasons why people do rent is because they have cost certainty. If the furnace breaks down, it's not their responsibility. If the roof needs replacing. So even elders are, if they're on their own, and of course many women that live men are on their own. You guys know I really like adding play areas, playfulness to every building, whether it's an office building or a residential building. I really believe in adding playfulness. It's very simple stuff like pickleball or cornhole, outdoor ping pong, volleyball, whatever it might be. This is really important. People who play together, stay together, and keeping your tenants happy and having them stay longer is a huge part of profitability for any landlord. If you're turning all your tenants over every month, or sorry, every year, God help you, that's going to really hurt your profitability. And then workshops. Everywhere we're adding workshops, we're finding tremendous demand for these things, and they can be in the basement of a building. I've encouraged Dan and Eric when they build their next, by the way, Christian, I like the name Quadrant for some of those buildings because of the fact that I studied Latin a long time ago. But whether we call them Plastor or Quadrants, for example, adding workshops in the basement, I think will actually be much more profitable for the investor, the owner, than just another parking space, especially if we go towards more light rail. So they could be backyard workshops, or they could be, basement workshops, whatever. So the very first Samuel model we did, I did it with a young client of mine in 2 towns. One is Chesterville, which is a lovely little town originally built by the Dutch, about an hour south of Ottawa, and Prescott, another town about an hour south of Ottawa. And so this is one of the buildings that he bought. I coached him with this, 148 King Street. And the model is really simple. You buy these buildings very inexpensively, and you renovate them. Obviously, you animate them. You drive the revenues up. You drive the the fair market value of, you refinance, take money out, rinse and repeat. So it's not any different than any other real estate business model, but this one has the potential to produce really dramatic cap rates, very good cap rates, and make that a little faster a model than, say, just buying a house or a townhouse and putting a residential tenant in it. And we've got people on the call today who can, or who are participating in this kind of group that I'm putting together, maybe in Sarnia, Belleville, Moncton, Calabogie, Peaks, Carlton Place, Rockland, Renfrew, and Penticton. So this is something that we could do, I think, right across Canada and in fact in the United States too. So this is, you know, guys, you know, I like this sketch. I'm an engineer, so my sketches are really indecipherable. I'm not gonna go through this particular sketch, but again, for 148 King Street West in Prescott, the highest and best use for that was an Edgar Cafe, a patio, and then a professional office, triple net rents, percentage rent. We'd have micro suites upstairs, and all kinds of other animations were possible. So that was the very first one that we did. This was why this is a bit time sensitive, because 2 weekends ago during my so-called holiday, I went to Belleville to buy this building. I wasn't sure I was going to buy it, but I went to Belleville and I actually bought it. So it's 240. That's a picture of me, by the way, getting ready to do my building inspection. Okay, don't laugh, Dan. That's very cruel. You know, so this is a building that was under power of sale. And I went down with my wife, Dawn, on a Sunday, and you can see this is me getting ready to do the building inspection. And on the right-hand side, this is the street front. Belleville is a really cool place. It's got the Bay of Quinte there. It's 5 minutes from Prince Edward County, which is where Picton and Sandbanks, and it's wine country. So it's 5 minutes from wine country. And you're going to hear lots more about this project. It's a 3-story building. It's got 6,100 square feet at grade, 2,700 square feet here, and 2,700 square feet here. And it has a basement, but I'm not sure what to do with the basement, but there is a basement there. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a little bit of a projection back here. It used to be used for a Chinese banquet hall, but this building, as you'll see in a minute, that little thing back there, it's about 800, 1,000 square feet, is perfect for makerspace or workshops. So here's the purchase price. Everybody sitting down. I bought it for, my wife and I bought it for $280,500. Now, in Toronto or Ottawa or Vancouver or San Francisco, you can't really buy very much for it. So it ended up being $24.39 a square foot through power sale. And I had to buy it on that day after I did my inspection because there were Toronto investors coming down the next day on the Monday. And so, you know, if we wanted to buy it, it was time to do it. So we did it on that Sunday. So the land area is about 10,000. It's right downtown Belleville, which is going through a tremendous renaissance. So it's land area of 10,500 square feet. The building's about 11,000 square feet, a little bit bigger than that. And what's interesting about it, guys, this is just pure fluke, is that the third floor already has 6 micro suites in it. And I found out that the people who owned it, I think before, ran this restaurant called the China Gate. And I think the China Gate restaurant built these micro suites on the 3rd floor, which need to be renovated for sure, but they built them, I think, for their employees. So they're pretty small. I think they're about 300 square feet, so similar in size to the one I showed you before, obviously much bigger than the ones that UBC is building. And everything's there, you know, the sinks are there, the kitchens are there, the bathrooms are there, which is pretty expensive to renovate if you have to do it from scratch. The 2nd floor, I think, was a dentist office, but it's going to be renovated for probably 3 900 square foot apartments, so 3 2-bedroom apartments on the 2nd floor. And then the ground floor, I think the best thing to do with it is some kind of a Edgar Cafe here, you know, some kind of a professional office here, or hairdresser, all the stuff I talked about, and then the maker spaces that I talked about back here. So it has all of the elements. And what's important, at least in Belleville, because it is a small town of 51,000 people, is that there is some parking in the back. There's about 4,000 square feet, room for about 13 cars to park in the back. So that's important. So now I'm going to get into the description of the deal that I'm working on. I'm trying to arrange a 65% loan to value first mortgage. I put in $25,000 of cash and in kind into this thing. And what I'm really suggesting is that I think we could do, 10 or 12 of these, possibly many more. I'm at the age where probably I can do one, but there's some people on this call who have the financial capacity and the youth to do many more. And I do think when you see the whole picture, that this is a model that is really not real estate, it's a business model for real estate. And that is an important difference. For those of you who followed my writings, you know that I believe that you can really only develop real estate in 1 or 2 cities. Everybody who's tried to do real estate in 10 locations, even 3 or 4 locations, most of them have failed. The most famous example of that was Olympia in York. Very successful real estate developers in the 80s in Toronto. They went to New York City, had tremendous success in New York City, and then they decided to leap the pond and go to London, England, where they developed Canary Wharf, which was a failure. And the reason it failed was what Olympia York didn't realize when they built these beautiful buildings in Canary Wharf, office buildings, is that in London, in the city, leases were typically 25 years. So it would take forever to lease up these buildings, and that just killed them. And they went bankrupt. A 10, 11, $12 billion company went bankrupt in just a few years on that. So real estate development is very, very local, and it's hard to develop in more than 1 or 2 cities, I think. However, if you have a co-working space, you have microsuites, you have the kinds of things that I've mentioned here in 40 cities. One microsuite is pretty much like any other microsuite. One professional office at grade is pretty much like any other. And I think this is something that where any one of the people on this call could have 20, 30, 40 of these, maybe 3 or 4 in one city and maybe be in 6 or 8 cities. And I think that would work. So anyway, what I would need help with, if anybody's interested, I'm pitching this to you guys. If anybody's interested, I would like to do this project using something I call the Mad River structure, which is, I think, a great structure for both investors and for the entrepreneur. In this case, I'm the entrepreneur, my wife and I. We would own 2/3 of this building, and we would like to have in each of these projects, I think, a maximum of 4. And what that means is we put in $25,000 of cash and in kind, and if somebody wanted to own 1/3 of this project, they would have to put in $12,495, $12,500. And if we had 3 people who were interested in this, it would be obviously a little over $4,000. So very, very small amounts of money, but it's very important that we have some help. For all of you who have followed my career, you know that before 2004, I just would have done this on my own. But after the Senators went bankrupt, I have to be a little bit more cautious, and I do need some help. We're going to do a second mortgage as well. This is part of the Mad River structure. So each of the folks who are co-investing with us would put up $40,000 if there were 3 of them. So we would have a second mortgage that would pay 8% on the deal. It would be cumulative for 3 years. So you'd have to budget a little bit of equity and a little bit of debt to participate if you were interested. We've already got a line on the construction mortgage. It's not cheap to renovate this building to the standards that I want. And one of the interesting components of this, because where I started when I answered Skylar's question this morning, because so many people are leaving Toronto and New York and San Francisco and Los Angeles because of the real estate prices being out of control, that most of the leasing for these kinds of Samuel products would be to people who are not local. And that's really important because you're really pitching it to Toronto expatriates, Montreal, Ottawa expatriates, and Los Angeles. We did one outside of Los Angeles to LA expats or San Francisco expats. And now so many people are working from home. You'll find people moving to Cedar Rapids in Idaho, just because they can, and they can live much less, much cheaper. I won't go through the spreadsheet. I did the spreadsheet on it. This building will produce about $216,000 of net operating income, which is pretty good. Which means it will produce, I'm almost done, by the way, I won't go on too much longer. The total cost is about $1.6 million. So if you combine those two numbers, it gives you a cap rate of about 13.6%. And that's really, really, really crucial. I've said to everybody who's investing in small towns, Brad, you and I've had this discussion, that you really want to focus on cap rates that are at least 8, 9, or 10% in smaller centers, because at least in the past, real estate appreciation hasn't been as fast in small centers as it is in larger cities like Ottawa or Toronto or Vancouver or San Francisco or Boston. So you need to make up for the fact that real estate's not going up as fast by having a bit more cash flow. This building will produce significant cash flow. I reached out, Shadi actually helped me with this, to CBRE for what are the applicable cap rates in a place like Belleville, again, a small center of 51,000, or Sarnia. They said it's about 5.5%. Obviously, in a place like Toronto, it might be 3.5, 3.25, 3.75%, but in smaller towns, CBRE said use 5.5%. So if we take the $216,000 of net operating income and divide it by 5.5%, we get a fair market value of about $3.9 million. So are we doubling? I think we're more than doubling the value of the building. That's really important, because the idea then is to refinance, take out a bunch of money tax-free, and do it again. And that's what I would like to do. If we can get a valuation of $3.9 million, we put a new first mortgage in anywhere from 1 to 3 years from now at 65%, means we get a refi of around $2.5 million, total cost about 1.6, which means we can take out about $962,000 in cash. And maybe then I can retire. Right now I'm on the Freedom 95 plan. You guys have all heard this joke. I figure I can retire about 5 years after I die. That's my current plan. But if anybody wants to give me a hand here, this would make a difference. So 1/3 of that cash would go to the investors, 2/3 would go to the entrepreneur. But I think we should do a bunch of these. Like I said, one in Renfrew, one in Rockland, one in Penticton, one in many other cities, and for all I care, many more. And I would like to coach all of you guys to do it. But I'm going to be one of the guinea pigs here. And so I call this model the non-partnership partnership model. And Dan, you and I and Eric have been through it. It's kind of a weird or bad handle that I came up with for what I'm trying to do here. But it means that if they were 4 partners in this project, for example, or any other, we would aim to do 4 projects, and each one of us would end up owning one. All right, so eventually, even though I own 2/3, my wife and I own 2/3, and the other folks own 1/3 of it, eventually, if we did 4, everybody would own 1. And the reason for that is everybody's at a different stage in life. I'm older, I think, than everybody else on the call, so my stage of life is different, but for a young person, he or she might have different ideas. So if you own 100% of one, that's pretty cool. You can refinance it, you can sell it, you can keep it, you can give it to your kids, whatever you decide to do. And I think it's called the non-partnership partnership model. And I think it really makes sense. Almost done here. And the property would either be held as tenants in common. So if there were 4 partners on each project, we'd all be on title, but that can be a bit awkward when you're doing financing and refinancing. So certainly one of the things that we could do is we have a simple trust agreement where the entrepreneur, whether it's me and Don or somebody else, holds that in trust, and we register that on title. It gives, I think, complete protection for the investors. And something else, I've done on every one of these Mad River deals, and I've done dozens, maybe even more than 100 of these, is we put in not only power sale provisions for the co-investors, but foreclosure. And so if the entrepreneur, whether it's me and Don or anybody else, doesn't do his or her job, they get kicked to the curb, and the co-investors actually own it. So you can foreclose on her. So you would end up owning it rather than me. That obviously is not the goal, but it does protect folks. Something else, Christian, I think this might be new to you, but I don't claim that because you're more of an expert in the RTA than I am, the Residential Tenancy Act. But I talked to Steve Shepard, who I have a lot of respect for. He's a young lawyer I've been working with for more than 10 or 12 years now. And he says that if we do a lease on Front Street in Belleville, if we do a lease on Front Street in Belleville, that is a commercial lease with accessory residential. Right? So if you want to run your hairdressing salon and you have an apartment, we're going to do a commercial lease with accessory residential. They're not covered by the RTA. And that was certainly new to me. And I just did one like that on last weekend, so a week ago today actually, with a custom furniture maker who rented a workshop for me. It's about 850 square feet and a 2-bedroom loft apartment in the same building. And I did it as a commercial lease with accessory residential. And Steve gave me a legal opinion. You can see it here on the screen that says, you know, if he doesn't pay, 2 weeks later, he's kicked out. I don't have to go through the process. Dan, you would have more experience than I do, and I know Christian does as well. You know, so that's a legal opinion, and if it's wrong, his errors and emissions insurance better be paid up, because I'm relying on that. I did say that I think Belleville is a wonderful town. It's going through a tremendous renaissance. They've got a new council, very focused on the downtown, so I like that. I met lots of people down there. You know, I'm a fairly friendly guy. I walked along the street, talked to developers. I met Zubin Gillespie. Mr. Gillespie's been active in Belleville, renovating these buildings for 11 years. He's had tremendous success with it. And you can see some of the buildings that Mr. Gillespie has renovated here. It's a great location, 2 hours from Toronto, about 2.5 hours from Ottawa. It's got a better weather than Ottawa, which isn't frankly hard to do. And it is literally 5 minutes from Prince Edward County, which is wine country for Ontario. So it's fantastic location, in my opinion. The Memorial Arena has just been sold and is going to be renovated beautifully. This is the old town hall. You can see the Bay of Quinte here, farmers market. So it's a growing community, and you know, I think with this COVID-19 thing and other factors, the work from home, we're going to see tremendous growth here. And again, everybody I ran into when I walked around the downtown core, and I met lots of people, they were all from somewhere else. They were mainly from Toronto. Almost done. So this is the skyline of Belleville. It's a beautiful historic building. Sorry it's so small, but this is 253 Front Street here. So you can literally walk, maybe it's a block, and you can put your kayak here, and the kayaking in Bay of Quinte is exceptional. So it's got all the elements that I like. And what else have I got here? I already talked about this. It's more of a business than it is a real estate idea. And I already talked about that. It's a great model, in my opinion. I've already covered all of this stuff. And this is, I think, really important for all of us. I checked, the average Canada pension plan has gone up. It's now $679 a month as of 2019. But if everybody of this group ended up with one of these, if there were 4 of us or 40 of us, if we all end up owning one of them, it'll produce $216,800 a year net operating income, i.e. after the mortgages are retired. That's what you end up with. That's not bad. Better than $679 a month. And for the younger people here and the ones who have greater resources than my wife and I have, if you had 5 Samuels, that's $1 million a year, almost 1.1 million in net operating income. And I love this comparison. If you had to save up your money, put it in a high interest bank savings account at say 1.5%, you would need to save 72 million bucks to retire at the same level as owning 5 of these. So I think it's a great model to help everybody, including me, take care of themselves and their family for 3 generations, which is the entire basis for the coaching that I do. And the other thing that I really like about the group that's here and the few others that I've talked to about this who couldn't be here today is that that I think we'll get a really good welcome from appraisers and from cities and towns and from lenders, because they're really looking not just at good deals, that's obviously important, but they're looking for great people as well. And the people on this call, I know them all well, and they're all great. So a change is coming, and that's my presentation. So now it's open for questions. If just unmute yourself as long as the kids aren't screaming or the dog barking.
I have a question for you, Bruce.
Sure.
So you'd be doing all of this work?
Well, yes, everybody who's the lead entrepreneur would be my responsibility. I would take responsibility for this, which is why, Dan, I can't do 5 of them. It's a full year of work. to get this, renovated and leased. So yeah, that would be my responsibility. But for you, for example, if you did 5 of them or 10 of them, or for that matter, 40 of them, obviously you would do all the work on all of those.
No, fair enough. Okay, I was just curious to see what this one. So, are you going to Belleville regularly? Is that part of
Well,
your?
yes. Because I'm doing so much coaching, Dan, I haven't announced this, so you put me on the spot. The winters are a little better in Belleville than in Ottawa. A January average temperature in January is about -2, whereas in Ottawa it's about -100. I don't know, maybe it's -20, I don't know. But, I would probably, my wife and I probably would relocate there for a year anyway. To be on site. I really want to do something, it's kind of an adventure, maybe one of the last adventures that I can. But, with the coaching that I'm doing, it's all on Zoom now. It is what it is. I could be in Belleville for a year.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, if you're in Ottawa and you're trying to be hands-on for a project of this caliber, you need
Yeah, it's
eyes
a lot of
and
work.
you
And,
need
and,
people in
and to
that
be,
area.
to be honest with you, my wife, Dawn, who's very quiet, which I like actually, it has a very good strategic head on her shoulders, and she is a project manager. So she's going to be a big help to me.
No, fair enough. Okay, I'll let the others chime in.
Oh yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Prof. Ruth, so is the idea that after the renovation is done and it's all leased and everything, when you refinance, so the original investors, so 2/3 of the cash out refi goes to yourself and your spouse, and then the 1/3 goes to the other investors, and
Right.
they will still own 1/3 of the building, the investor.
Exactly. The beautiful thing about the Mad River structure, and Ali, I've been using it for a long time. The really nice thing about it from an investor's point of view is, let's say, Ali, you and Oksana decided you would like to own 1/3 of the building, for whatever it was, $12,000, 12,500 or something like that. The neat thing about it is that once it's refinanced, the investor owns 1/3 of a wonderful project for 12,500, almost no money. And I've used this over and over and over again, where you have entrepreneurs, in this case like me, who don't have all the money in the world, and marry them up with people who have more financial capacity. And it works great, because there's lots of people who have money but no time, and then there's people who have time but not a whole lot of money. So it does work well. But the idea would be to do, if there was a group of 4, for example, in each one of these projects, the idea would be to do 4 of them over time, and so everybody would own one. But there's no rhyme or reason to that. It could just be we do one project, and Ali owns part of it, and Paul owns part of it, or Skylar owns part of it, whatever. We've got a beautiful building in Belleville with hopefully great tenants. And my wife and I own 2/3, and my joint venturers own 1/3 for almost no money once it's refinanced.
Yeah. And there's the 40K second mortgage as well, right? Per investor.
Yeah, yes, I need some help with that too, because it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And the project doesn't close. I mean, the building doesn't close until September 30th. But the power of sale, it was done by a lender. They gave me almost no time. Like, I think I had 36 hours to beetle on down to Belleville and do the building inspection, and I talked to the city of Belleville. They were fantastic. Very, very supportive. And I talked to their buildings people as well, because there's some work orders against the building. And so I did all of that in 36 hours.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
Well, for somebody who's 68, it was I was really hustling, because I'm very committed to this. The first 2 I did with a coaching client of mine worked out fantastic. In Chesterville and Prescott. He's a young person. He's kind of your age and Skylar's age, and a few other people on the call here. Dustin's age. I think he's not yet 30. I won't mention his name. It's not fair, but he's worth a few tens of millions of dollars. He never finished, I think he finished high school, but he never had any other, tertiary education. And he started out in business at 18. Now he's, I think, 29. So he is one of the wonderful people I coach. But he's not on this call for a reason, Ali. He is a total lone wolf, which I completely respect. He marches to his own drum, and he's a brilliant young man. And he made all of that money on his own. And if I told you the business he was in, it would identify him. But he's got a wonderful business mind, and he loves real estate. That's not his main business, but he loves real estate. And really, this model is something I worked on with him.
Okay.
Sorry, Bruce, what was the timeline to the refi situation? So basically, when does the second mortgage get paid out?
I think 1 to 3 years. It is a 12-month, Christian. I don't think this is a major renovation. I don't think it can be done in less than 12 months. Just to give you an idea, these crazy owners, who ran the China Gate restaurant, in the back, they decided to put in an overhead door. They went through a bearing wall, put a crappy little overhead door. And so if you go in the back, you can see the structures doing this. The very first thing I have to do is get some jack posts in there, which I am actually talking to the engineer tomorrow. We're going to do that like immediately. So, I mean, they did some really stupid things that have to be fixed. It's not an expensive fix, but it's pretty important. So it's 1 year renovation and a refi between 1 and 3 years.
Hey, Bruce, it's Paul. Thank you
Yes.
for having all of us on the call. This is very interesting.
Thank you, Paul.
Bruce, you talked about, these things being done in clusters.
Yeah.
Based on your kind of knowledge of say, the Belleville market, and you're thinking about Renfrew and other small towns and maybe the Ottawa Valley, how many opportunities do you see that have this kind of economics associated with it? Is this a unique situation, or are there lots of these, do you think, out there?
Well, that's a great question, Paul. If I were to take the group, and we could do it using Google Maps, we don't actually have to go and get in our car or fly anywhere. But if you go down Main Street, Main Street, Belleville, there's about 10 or 12 of these wonderful historic buildings that are now for sale. And there are about the same number have been renovated, many of them by Zubin Gillespie, the developer I mentioned earlier that I met when I was there. And so just in Belleville on Front Street, there's 10 or 12 of these buildings that we could buy for not very much money. I happen to like this one the best. If you go to most small towns, you'll see that people just don't understand this animation thing that I have been talking about. So people maybe are sick of hearing me talk about it, but this animation stuff that I'm working on, Paul, so many people who are in the real estate business can tell you how to save a little bit of money on your property management side. We have on the call today Dan Dore, who's one of the best property managers I know really on the planet. Most of them are terrible, mind you, but Dan is not. He's really good. And that is a skill I don't really have, and there wasn't really much I could add in that area that people like Dan haven't already figured out ahead of me. But on the revenue side, how to do proper leasing, how to do triple net leasing, how to bring percentage rents into the residential space, how to do augmented tenancies, all of that has come from me. So I think we can find in virtually every town from here to Penticton. Annie's in Penticton, BC, in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. I've got clients there in Winnipeg, Manitoba, all over the place. I think we could go down any main street and we can do it with Google Maps, and you'll just see one boarded up place after another. And there's no limit, in my opinion, to the ability on the supply side to pick these things up. And, Prescott is not exactly a boom town, Paul. It has some sketchy past to it. And yet we were able to pick up that building, 148 King Street West. My client was for $148,000. He put in about $250,000 worth of renovations in it. We attracted some very good tenants, and we refinanced it, and my client was able to take out about $110,000, $115,000 in cash. He did that within a year. I mean, he's really an amazing young entrepreneur. So I think the supply side is there, and I think actually the demand side is good too. Any other questions? Eric, you've been quiet. Skylar, uncharacteristically quiet. Dustin, I haven't heard from you yet. David, you always have something to say.
I'm learning now.
There you go. I think it would be really helpful if you don't mind. I apologize for putting you guys on the spot, but would it be okay if I asked everybody if they could just do a 1-minute introduction of themselves? Starting, I guess, with Christian.
Sure. Okay, I guess I'm on the spot, but this will give everybody else a bit of time to prepare their little 1 minute. So my background is I came from the tech sector, so I left the tech sector back about 3 years ago to focus on real estate investing full time, and one of my daughters as well who needed my help. So I've been doing a lot of acquisitions over the last 3 years, and we did a lot in the way of most of what we do is buy assets that are distressed, either through tenant issues, building issues, etc. And then what we do is we renovate them. We as Bruce would call it, we animate them, and then we do a refinance activity. So we're typically in the multi-space. So we need buildings that are typically in the commercial ranking of residential. So that's one aspect of it. And then of course, because of my tech background, I tend to put a lot of tech into our buildings as well, which generates additional revenue, lowers costs, expands the NOI. So we do lots of fun stuff on that side.
I guess, Skylar, you're next.
Yeah, I live in beautiful Carleton Place, Ontario, Canada. Background in real estate, have a couple of active businesses on the go as well, and I just continue to try and increase the amount of headaches that I have on a day-to-day basis, and it's a good time.
Skylar is far too modest. He's a former student of mine, poor Skylar, but he is a very good businessman. He runs a mini storage business. He runs a townhouse construction business. He has amazing properties downtown Ottawa, on Rideau Street, and many of them, and big ones. And he's had tremendous success. He's one of my former students, as I said, and one of the students I'm really proud of. Christian gave a lecture, by the way, in my pivot class. And so did David Perry. So I picked on those guys too. And thank you very much, Skylar. Dan?
Thanks, Bruce.
One other connection there is I actually bought a building off of Skylar.
Yeah, I knew that.
So you just didn't realize it was me, I think.
You eliminated a headache, Christian. Thank you.
Partners can be troublesome sometimes. Yes, I understand.
Especially those types of partners. I'll go back on mute now.
All right.
Hi, my name is Dan Dory. I've been involved in real estate since 1999. Started a management company to offer management services to people all over Ottawa. Was fortunate enough to connect with Bruce, I think it's over a year now, and just trying to expand my horizon on growth, because I had always done everything on my own. All my real estate, everything was just me. And thankfully, Eric, my first and new partner, is on this call as well. And Eric and I had been talking for quite a long time. Bruce knows him, and somebody else that Eric and I have in common actually connected us. And we've bought a plot of land in Orleans that we're at the site plan process now for 97 units. And we have another one we're working on now as well for 30 unit. And Eric has all the construction experience. So we're really looking forward to making a go of that. And then Bruce, I enjoy this, what you're presenting here, because it's, I'll be quite honest, it's very foreign to me to go into commercial in a different location. I've always been in Ottawa. Yeah. But my curious mind tells me for $12,500, it'd be a really good crash course to learn how this works. And
Thank you
just
for the
for
support,
that,
Dan.
yeah, no, but just for that, I'm almost curious, just for pure curiosity to see how that would work.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
really appreciate the support from all of you. And Dan, how many buildings, the 90-some units that you're building, it's on Innes Road, I think. How many buildings is it? Is it 2 or 3?
It'd be 3.
3 buildings, yeah.
Yeah.
So what will the story height be?
We have 2 buildings, it'd be 3 stories, 33 units, and we have the middle building that, well, because of the city's pushback on a few things and fire route is, I think we're aiming for 31 units. Eric could probably reconfirm that, on 5 stories. It's a smaller footprint,
Yeah.
but very, very nice project.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and I mean, and Eric has done these before, right? So this is not his first rodeo. He's done this as long as I've been involved in management. He's been involved in construction. So we're really, like, I'm really, really happy to.
Is it okay if I just hog the spotlight for another 60 seconds, Dan? Paul Murphy is going to introduce himself in a minute. But Paul, I mentioned to you Brad Cartier. Brad's on the call here with us. Wave hi, Brad. And there's Paul. Paul is going to introduce himself in a minute, and Brad too. But Paul is one of the owners, the principal owner, actually, of Calabogie Peaks, with a very ambitious rollout there. You know, Paul won't say it, but I will. Just to prove, and Christian, you might be interested in this especially, just to prove how strong the demand is for exurbs, you know, moving out of the city. Paul and his partner Jim Hamlin at Calabogie Peaks, which is a very small town of only about 1,000 people, had 32 townhomes and condo units for sale 90 days ago. Every one of them sold. Everyone. That's a big sell-through for a small town like Calabogie Peaks, which was fantastic. But the reason I'm hogging the spotlight one more time is that Paul, on this call today, Brad Cartier is a very experienced developer. He's very young, but he's very experienced in Rockland. He is building for around $160 a square foot, in that range, for new home construction. And Eric Brisson, who's on this call, who will introduce himself in a minute, I think could probably beat that. And I think for Calabogie Peaks, as you go forward with the plan to have many more units there in the hundreds, you should probably talk to Dan Doré, Eric Brisson, and Brad Cartier, all the French guys.
That sounds great. I look forward to doing that. Thank you very much for the connection. I had asked Bruce when I heard some of those numbers in terms of how you guys are able to build, if he would kindly put us together. So this is a great opportunity for that, and I appreciate it, Bruce. Thanks.
So Eric, if you don't mind, and Dan and Brad, would you, only if you're comfortable with this, could you put your email address in the chat box? And then Paul, you'll have Dan's contact information, Eric's contact information, and Brad's contact information. These are wonderful people, young compared to me anyway, and they're really knowledgeable. Annie, your turn to introduce yourself.
Hello. My internet connection is very bad. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you.
Okay, well, thank you for putting this, Bruce. I really love this model. Me and my husband, we have a construction company, so we've been in construction for over almost 20 years now, design and building, and I'm looking forward to do real estate investment and having multiple model in one building. I really love the creativity that Bruce brings to that investing. I don't even know if I'm freeze because I'm frozen on my own screen, but if you hear me well, yeah, I really like that creativity, and I like to build my own portfolio that way.
So Annie is, again, like Skylar, very modest. She's very modest, but Annie, her nickname is Annie on the Go. and I've been coaching her for a while. She's a fabulous designer and an amazing businesswoman, and she really understands real estate. She understands this thing. Annie, I'd like you to be one of the next entrepreneurs out of the gate with this model. Brad, can you introduce yourself now?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Bruce. And yeah, I'm liking everything I'm hearing about this Belleville project. So let's make this happen. I'm out in Rockland. I'm a digital marketing consultant with a number of Silicon Valley property technology startups. I'm also a writer for Motley Fool, but my passion's really on the real estate development. I now have 30 doors and multiple ongoing new build projects, mostly missing middle multifamily in the Ottawa area, Embrun, Russell, Rockland for now, but looking to expand as well. And yeah, that's about it. Most importantly, I guess, father of 4 young daughters under the age of 10. So I am a Disney princess expert.
Just so you know, Brad, I have 3 beautiful daughters who I love dearly. They're all in their 20s now, but when they were teenagers together, I was ready to trade them for 3 boys. Because I had my 2 boys, the worst thing that ever happened with my boys when they were teens is they might come home a little, drunk and lie down on the kitchen floor and fall asleep. But my daughters, if there had been an Olympic sport called door slamming, we would have been gold, silver, and bronze medalists in our house. And as I said earlier in the call, my wife's very quiet, so am I. We don't yell and scream. So having 3 teenage girls was really a challenge for me and for Dawn. But now they're in their 20s. I would never give them away. So 4 girls, good luck. Ali, can you talk about some of your tech and real estate as well?
Yeah, sure. Professionally, I'm a cybersecurity consultant. I became an independent consultant about 2 years ago. I worked a contract with the Bank of Canada for a while. Now I'm at Payments Canada. And on real estate side, we got started about 5 years ago. We bought a couple of bungalows over the last few years and converted the basements to student rentals, mainly the secondary dwelling. On the last project, which is now ongoing actually, and Dustin is helping us with that. We followed Prof. Bruce's model, and instead of having like 3 or 4 bedroom in the basement, we're trying to put 3 microsuites in there and bathrooms and kitchenettes and all that stuff.
And Ali, your wife, Oksana, is also like a super cybersecurity expert, right?
Yeah, she's also a cybersecurity engineer, and we're also trying to grow our. So we are just doing consulting right now, but we are trying to grow that side of business as well, beyond just our consulting. We have a new name, by the way.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah, Truvo Cyber.
What's it called?
Truvo.
Truvo Cyber. That's an excellent name.
Yeah.
And if you're getting hacked, you call Ali and Oksana. Okay.
Yeah. Or if you don't want to be hacked.
Yeah. Where's Dustin? Oh, there he is. We haven't heard from Dustin yet. All right, Paul, you're next.
Yes. So I'm enjoying my 4th career now, which is a form of real estate, which is Calabogie Peak. So I'm the 2nd generation owner in our family of it. My parents were the 2nd owners of the business. They bought it in '82. And then my wife and I purchased their interests in about 2006. And I had been co-investing with my parents beforehand. Up until just 3 or 4 years ago, we've been entirely focused on the operations, the hotel, the restaurant, the skiing, and the golf and the waterfront. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've master planned it to a master plan community. The site's about 720 acres. And we have density allotments currently for about 451 units. So Bruce has been doing a great job helping us take our vision and apply a very good commercial, in terms of both residential and commercial uses, for these sustainable communities that we've all been talking about. So many of the elements of everything we're discussing currently reside or will reside in Calabogie Peaks. We think we've got a very exciting future. And what we don't know is what our annual absorption rate will be, because we're still discovering it. But those 32 units, Bruce, actually sold in 60 days, not 90 days. It's unbelievable. So we're now doing tours with people on just talking about our next phase of development. I have a long history in the area. I was born and raised in Toronto, but my wife and I moved to New York in 1983. And in my first two careers, I was a lawyer in Canada, a lawyer in New York. And then I spent most of my career as an investment banker for Solomon Brothers in New York. So I've got, what helps me on the planning side is I have some of just the basic legal skills and the finance skills to be able to work through some of the many issues that we in real estate have to deal with. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to carry what we're doing now, because as it currently stands, I think we have a list of people that are working on our development in Calabogie. It's probably 25 different organizations. It's scary. And the amount of, I mean, I think you guys have all seen it, the amount of red tape that we have to go through to create something like this is nothing short of frightening. And it's amazing anybody can succeed. So you can tell I'm a little frustrated by that, but you know, it's we get some wind at our tail from the fact that we're the only growth business in the southern areas of Renfrew County, and so there's a lot of political will to try to make it happen. But it's still nonetheless quite dramatic. So some of you on the phone, I'm glad to meet for the first time, and there's areas of expertise that you have that I think we would be very interested in, and so I look forward to getting to know you a bit better.
Something else too that Paul didn't mention is that Calabogie Peaks has done something really remarkable. And for all the real estate guys and gals on the call here, Paul and Jim have incorporated something called Calabogie Utilities. So that, which is a remarkable achievement, Paul. And that means that for the 450 additional units that will be built there, water and sewer, piped water and sewer are available, which is a huge, huge benefit. I've been a big believer in this since the 80s, that, you know, forcing every rural property owner to drill a well and run a septic tank and septic field is ridiculous. You're asking every homeowner to be an expert, sanitary engineer and an expert water or hydrologist, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. I really think Calabogie Utilities is something also of a growth business. So I really like what is happening there. And Paul, I think a 60-day sell-through for 32 units gives you an idea what the sell-through rate will be, especially given that Calabogie is now heading in a direction that I think is a really good one, where you're part of the FEHAJ, for every home a job, for every job a home. The workshop idea, all of that, that's where people are going. I didn't tell you guys in the presentation because I didn't want to go on too long, but I did rent 2 workshops lately in the last little while. Well, actually one a couple of years ago and one on last weekend. One to a young woman who has an apartment, rents an apartment from us, and she has a backyard workshop that I built actually for her, where she runs a yoga studio of her own. And she went from making $25 or $30 an hour as a yoga instructor, about $35,000 a year, to running her own yoga practice in her backyard in this workshop that I built for her. And she showed me her returns, her income tax return for last year. She made $145,000, Paul.
Beautiful.
So you think about that change. She's a young woman. She's on her own. She's in her 30s. 2 kids, I think 2 and 5. A wonderful young person. And bringing up 2 kids by yourself on $35,000 a year, paying rent to me and my wife, that's tough. And now when this year she's making less because of COVID, but she'll still make over 80 this year. And last year 145, and hopefully as we get on top of this pandemic, she'll go back to that number. That's a huge life-changing thing, and that's where I think we have to go with Calabogie Peaks and with many of these other places. The other one I rented, as I said, was to a man by the name of Joel. He makes beautiful custom furniture, and I didn't even think to offer him the 2-bedroom apartment in the loft. I mean, it was vacant, and he and his wife came. Brigitte said to me, "What are you doing with that?" I said, "Oh, I guess we're going to rent it." He said, "Well, we'd like to. Can we live in the loft and rent the workshop underneath?" And I said, "Yeah." And Dustin, I think you're going to work with Joel to make it all happen.
Yes, I think I'm going to have to talk to him on Monday
I
tomorrow.
think you are. So David Perry, we're coming to you next. But Dustin, since I got you live, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? And Dustin is a wonderful, wonderful designer. I'm going to say that before he does. And the only arguments I have with Dustin is that he doesn't charge me enough. That is a true statement. He did some wonderful design work for me, and he gave me the bill. And I said, that's not enough. And that's the kind of person that Dustin is. All right, Dustin, over to you.
Well, some background: architectural technologist. Done it since 2012, when that was the last time I worked for someone. And just want to say thanks, Bruce, for inviting me to this call. I'm not used to being around these caliber of people, but I think this is where my life is heading, to become one of these, one of these people. And personally, I have a triplex in Renfrew. I'm from the Ottawa Valley, and looking to develop one this spring, and going to be working with Bruce and to help me with the leasing, because I like the gigaplex idea that he's proposing. Part of my issue is just managing my time, getting back to my clients, and also just trying to be on top of life. 3 kids, 2 stepkids, total of 5 to manage. So it gets very challenging with time and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm just listening to Bruce. If I had the money, I think I'd be jumping in a minute, just to be surrounded and learning from the experiences that someone Bruce, could teach me.
So one of the reasons why I wanted you on this call, Dustin, is I wanted you to meet all these folks. And if you don't mind putting your email address in the chat box, everybody on this call, I think all of us can use the kind of design quality. Something else that Dustin didn't mention is that he doesn't just do design work, he gets you your building permit. So Paul and Christian and Skylar and everybody else, I mean, when I give Dustin something to do, I know it's going to get done right. The detail is incredible. And then he goes and he, pounds on the desk and gets building permits for me, like no hassle. And Skylar, I know you hate doing that. And frankly, so do I. I get so frustrated with, like you, Paul, with people who are small-minded. When I started out, Dustin, when I was your age, I used to get building permits in the city of Nepean, for example, in probably 3 or 4 days. I'd submit an application for a building permit on Wednesday. They'd call me from the city of Nepean on Friday, apologizing that the permit wasn't ready until Monday. And it only required 2 sign-offs, right? You had to have somebody from the buildings branch and somebody from the planning department sign off. So when you only need 2 people to sign off, it's pretty easy to get sign-off on a building permit. And today, I don't know what it is. Is it 12, 13 people that have to sign off? And it takes, quite a bit longer. So I'm very grateful to Dustin, and I would strongly encourage everybody. Ali, I think you're already working with Dustin. The other reason I wanted you on the call is I think you should be looking for a place similar to what I bought my wife and I bought in Belleville, in Renfrew. I mean, you're in Renfrew, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll bet you there's right down Main Street. I know Renfrew real well. Right down Main Street, there's going to be some same things, Skylar, for you in Carlton Place. I thought this model should be something you could drive down freaking Main Street, and we could you live there. You could pick up the whole Main Street and do a makeover. And
I think the trouble is, Bruce, I could get the same price in Belleville.
Can you get the same price?
Well, no, you paid $280 for something. I'd probably pay $280 for a town of 12,000 people, right?
Well, the numbers are really good. Like I said, who would have thought that Prescott would return the kind of, I mean, I would pick Carlton Place over Prescott. I hope nobody's taking any offense, but I would pick Carlton Place over Prescott any day. So I do think it doesn't really matter. It could be Carlton Place, or it could be some other town. It could be Alma. I don't care. It could be Renfrew. But I do think, Dustin, for you, and also for you too, Skylar, that you should be recognize that this is a model that I think has legs. It's going to be, I think, a model that will work for the next decade, maybe longer, but certainly for the next 10 years. And when you're 68, that's about all I'm concerned with. But I think keep your eyes open. You'll find some opportunities. And Dustin, if you do, or Skylar, if you do, I mean, I know Skylar can, just do it on his own, no problem, which is fine. But if you bring it back to the group, I think that would be interesting as well. All right. So is there anything else you want to add, Dustin?
Nope, not right now.
All right. So I think we only have one other person to, Eric, sorry, you're last.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you very much for putting this together. Actually, I'm having a bit of an issue with the internet as well. I'm at the cottage, so I'm not sure if sometimes it started freezing up or not. Can you hear me clear? Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot for actually sharing this with us. Your insight is always appreciated, obviously. And for us, I'm basically, we're in real estate development for quite a few years now. We've been kind of focusing on multi-residential, basically any from 5 stories or less. So basically mid-rise or wood type building, conventional building. We've been doing this for a few years now. We've kind of focused, kind of changed our focus from condos to apartment buildings for the last few years. And like Dan Doherty said, we're looking at a few developments in Orleans and elsewhere in Ottawa now.
Yeah, very exciting. And again, Eric is far too modest, but he knows how to build really good product. 3-story apartment buildings that he's building them at a very nice level, good finishes, etc., at a very reasonable price. Paul, if you do reach out to Eric when you hear what he's able to build at, you're going to fall off your chair. He really understands how to build these things, exactly on budget, delivering big corridors, really good fit ups, parking underneath where you could literally eat off the floor, very well lit storage areas. I'm encouraging workshops there. Beautiful balconies, so because we need to get outside in such a cold weather city. But then in the public areas, they're smaller. I agree with Eric's position. Don't build these marble lobbies that are incredibly expensive to heat and cool and clean and maintain and repair. His lobbies are functional, but the apartments are fabulous. The corridors are generous. The whole buildings. If you have a chance, Paul, to reach out to Eric and Dan about what they're doing, and you too, Brad. You should reach out to see what Eric and Dan are capable of doing. It's really extraordinary. And David Perry, I did forget about you, but so you're not last, Eric. David, you are.
Well, thanks, Bruce. I mean, we go back 33, 35 years.
I think so.
I was a tenant of Bruce in my former life as a headhunter. And then about 33 years ago, I went out on my own with my business partner, Anita Martel. And together we own Perry Martel International, which is an executive search firm that works in construction and real estate. And we do it all over the world. And I'm getting ready to retire in the next 5 years. And I need to do 2 things. I need to start to park some money. And I've made a tremendous amount of money for real estate developers on 5 different continents. So that's why I'm here. I've got some business with Bruce afterwards, but that's why I'm here. I've got a crash course on the next 6 to 9 months to figure out what to do for the next 4 or 5 years. And then the next 30 after that, because at 65, I walk out and I guess the family will take over the business. And like Bruce, every now and then I'll write a book or so. And his books, by the way, are great, especially if you love fantasy. If you're an Isaac Asimov fan, you got to read the Foundation trilogy because it blows Isaac's stuff out of the water. I think that was pretty much my quote until you made me clean it up.
I think you did say that about some of the stuff I read. If anybody wants to read any of my learning outcome novels, send me an email. I'll send you an e-copy. Like I said, you put it on your tablet. Thank you, David, for that. David is very, very, very modest. He is one of North America's, in fact, one of the world's leading HR professionals. My books sell a few thousand, a few tens of thousands, maybe. David's sell in the millions. What was the latest one that you wrote, David?
That was Executive Recruiting for Dummies.
Executive Recruiting for Dummies, and he's a real whiz at that sort of stuff, guerrilla marketing. And so if you need any help staffing up, David has helped people in architecture, engineering, real estate, technology. I mean, I don't think there's a field, David, where you haven't put somebody in place.
No offense, Paul, but I stay away from lawyers.
Me too. I do too. I hate lawyers. Don't quote me on that.
I didn't say that.
All right.
I did.
Okay. So listen, everybody, thank you very, very much for your time today. I kept you almost an hour and a half too long. So after this is over, if everybody could log off, I just need to spend about 10 or 15 minutes with Dave Perry, just on a completely different matter. But I will stop recording now. This will download to my computer. I'll upload it unlisted to YouTube. Everybody will get a link, so you can, if you did want to look at it again, you could. And is there anybody here who is uncomfortable if I were to email the group, you know, with open email addresses? Is there? If you're uncomfortable, just put it in the chat box. But you know, this is a wonderful group of people. You can tell that these are people that I think we should be connected to each other. We should be helping each other out. So if there's a problem with me having an open email, you let me know, and of course I'll protect your email address. But if I don't hear from you, I'll just do an open email. Everybody will see the link at the same time. And if anybody is interested in participating, you know, I can do the coaching. We could do 40 of these SAM models. We can do 40 of them. I have the energy to do one, and the group has the energy to do the other 39. But I would like to do some coaching if you want to do this. David, if you're interested in being an investor, you know, and doing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 for yourself and your family, that's fine. Just let me know what your reaction is. I will email everybody, and I really appreciate it. So I'll say so long. Have a good rest of your Sunday, guys.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Christian,
Bye-bye.
Brad, Eric, Dustin.
Thanks.
All the best. Allie, Annie,
Thank you.
Dan, and Skylar.
Hang on just a sec. I want to see if I, oh, I think I got through. Yeah, okay.
Sounded good though.
Yeah, so do we just make sure I'm off of this, okay?
I'll remove you, Paul.
Hang on. So I don't know. Can you take me off?
Yep. Just got to remove one more. So David, I think for some reason or other, there, Annie's gone. So we're oh, I got to stop the recording. Hang on. All right. Thanks again, everybody.